They used to call him nothing more than her black stepfather, some even whispered it with a smirk, a kind of joke, like he was the punchline to some story that was never funny. His shoes became an inside joke, too, the kind that only gets shared when you think someone isn't listening. But, all that changed the second Lena started crying and his name rang out from the stage. That was the moment everyone's little grins and sideways glances just vanished. The university auditorium that afternoon was pure gold, sunlight streaming in through those big windows, shining over the polished floors and crisp white tablecloths, making every glass and every look in the room a little more obvious. Graduation day supposed to be the happiest, right? But for Lena Harper, every step across that reception hall was heavy. She held her diploma like a lifeline, her black heels making these soft, nervous taps next to a pair of scuffed-up dress shoes. That was Malcolm Harper, stepfather, late 40s, the kind of man who stood out for being quiet in a world that shouts. His deep brown skin against that sea of white faces, his slightly faded navy blazer, khaki pants, and that tie she picked out for him, which, let's be honest, was sitting a little crooked, but he wore it with this dignity that didn't need fixing. No one ever needed to tell Malcolm how to be proud of Lena. He just was. You could see it in the way he looked at her, like there was nothing in the world more important than the woman she was becoming. Lena straightened her gold tassel, lifted her chin, but the tension in the air hit her before she even found her mother's family, the Crowleys. Pearls and posture, all of them, holding their sparkling cider like props, like the party wasn't really for her, just a show. The moment she came close, their whispers got legs. Is that her driver? I heard he's only the stepfather. Couldn't she bring someone respectable for once? That stuff, it cuts deeper than people realize. Lena glanced at Malcolm, his face calm. No sign that he'd heard anything, but she saw the way his jaw set, the way his hands twisted in his pockets. Her mother, of course, was nowhere to be found too far, she'd said, though Connecticut's barely a 2-hour flight. Malcolm, thuff-driven all night. 7 hours straight, no complaint, just to be there for her. And there he was, invisible to almost everyone else. Lena wanted to turn around and defend him, to shout, "This man saved me when my own mother quit," but she bit her tongue, smiled, and pulled Malcolm along to greet a professor instead. Not because she was ashamed, she just didn't trust herself not to cry. Passing a table where a cousin made a show of moving her purse to the far side of her chair, Lena reached for Malcolm's elbow, holding on tight. There was no need for words. Neither of them were going anywhere. Somewhere nearby, the fake laughter rose and fell like background music. But then a voice sliced through. I wonder what her real father would think. Lena froze. Her hand tightened around a dessert plate, so hard she heard it creak. Her shoulders locked, and Malcolm just reached across, his calloused hand finding hers, grounding her like always. One gentle touch, like a bookmark between chapters, pulled her right back into herself. Suddenly, the memories started coming, flashes of Malcolm picking her up in his old, rust-stained pickup, that embarrassing passenger door that groaned like a cartoon every time it opened. The other parents with their shiny SUVs and perfect suits, while Malcolm still had grease under his nails from the mechanic shop. Kids asked if he was her uncle, or worse. She remembered how she'd stare at her shoes, wishing to disappear, but Malcolm always showed up with a smile and a paper cup of hot chocolate. Tough day. That was all he ever needed to say. At home, he was the guy crawling around on the floor for her science projects, making the living room look like a workshop. He never finished high school, but he cheered louder than anybody when she won 3rd place, then fixed her nightlight when they got home. He read To Kill a Mockingbird to her, every word, every night. When she played violin off-key, he clapped like she was at Carnegie Hall. And when her real dad walked out for good, Malcolm just showed up and kept showing up. No apologies, no promises, just presence. Back in the present, Lena blinked hard to fight the tears. She looked at Malcolm, sitting so straight and gentle in that thrift store suit, and realized looked out of place to everyone else, but to her he was perfect. She slid her hand into his. "You okay?" she whispered. He winked. "You're the one in heels." and she almost laughed out loud right there. The whispers didn't stop, but Lena didn't care anymore. She saw the truth clear as day. These people didn't know what real meant. Malcolm never needed a title. He chose to be her father every day. That was all that mattered. The auditorium fell quiet as the chancellor stepped up, her voice ringing out. We began our honorary recognitions. Lena's heart skipped. There'd been hints, but nothing certain. The Crowleys all lined up in a row, watching Malcolm from the back like he was invisible. His suit a bit too big, shoes clean but worn. Her cousin whispered, "Maybe he's here to clean up after," and another laughed, "Looks like the maintenance crew." Lena heard it all. She didn't react, she just sat taller. Then the chancellor's tone changed. "There is one award today we did not announce. For extraordinary sacrifice, leadership through adversity, and commitment to family." Lena felt goosebumps. The crowd went still. Malcolm Harper. For a heartbeat. No one moved. Lena's hands clapped first, sharp and proud, and then the rest of the room followed. Malcolm stood frozen, as if he couldn't believe it. Lena stood up, nodded for him to walk forward, her smile trembling. All the people who'd whispered now watched in awe as Malcolm, the man they mistook for a janitor, walked to the stage. The dean stepped up, the mic trembling in her hand. She began, "I want to share a story." The whole place hushed. 12 years ago, she said, during rush hour, a bomb went off at the 7th Street subway. Most ran for safety. One man ran into the Smokino badge. No uniform, no camera. He pulled out 8 people, then slipped away before anyone could thank him. No one ever found him, but donations started showing up at the trauma center, all anonymous. And the trail, she said, leads to someone standing here now. People looked at each other. Was it really him? Then the dean said it again. Malcolm Harper. This time you could feel the air change. Gasps. Shaky hands reaching for phones. Lena turned and saw Malcolm standing in the same old brown suit. But now he looked honored, finally seen. The Crowleys shrank in their seats, a portrait starting to crack. Malcolm took the mic, and his voice was calm. "I didn't play the hero. I never did any of that for recognition. I did it because someone once did it for me. My stepdaughter is the most brilliant person I know, not because of her grades, but because she never stays down when life knocks her over. I'm not her biological father, but when her dad left, I stayed. That's all I ever tried to do." The room was so quiet, you could hear the cameras clicking. He held the award and shook his head, still not believing it. "I didn't think people noticed, but I guess they do." Applause filled the air, real, full-throated, meaningful applause. Lena stood taller than she'd ever felt. Malcolm, the invisible man, was the hero now, in the light his story finally told. When he finished, the chancellor called him a quiet architect of change. She spoke of his years mentoring, tutoring, supporting families, donating in secret. Lena caught his eye and smiled, tears streaming down her face. Malcolm said quietly, "I don't like crowds, never planned on being a hero. That day at the subway, I just saw people in need and ran toward them. Not heroic, just human. If I'm proud of anything, it's raising Lena. She's not my blood, but she's my heart. She's why I kept going." The whole auditorium stood for him, including the relatives who'd laughed at his shoes. When they left, the sun felt different, the air softer. Inside, the Crowleys had shrunk. No more pearls, no more laughter, just awkward silence, and a few clumsy attempts at apology. "We didn't realize," muttered her aunt. A cousin said, "I didn't know." Malcolm just replied, "You didn't ask." No need for revenge, just the truth. They walked out together, Lena's arm through his, passing the marble columns, and all the stunned faces. Malcolm steps light for the first time all day. In the quiet that followed, everyone learned that greatness doesn't shout. It walks quietly beside you until one day, you finally notice. Back home, sunlight poured across the floor. Lena replaced an old crayon drawing her third-grade self's, my hero Malcolm, with a photo of him on stage, medal shining, applause frozen behind him. He saw her do it, smiled gently, and said, "You didn't have to." She shook her head. "But I wanted to. The world needs to see what I've always seen." They sat together, the silence between them warm and full. Outside, the world kept spinning, kids laughing, dogs barking. But something had shifted forever, because now, finally, everyone else could see what Lena always knew: heroism isn't loud. It's in the calloused hands, the quiet gestures, the love that stays when everyone else walks away. So what do you think? Really, what is family? What is justice? What does it mean to truly be seen? I'd love to hear where you stand. If you had been there, what you would have done, what you would have said. Sometimes the biggest change starts with the smallest truths spoken out loud at last.